The Lions have racked up another handsome win down under, but there were many challenges along the way, particularly in the first half. Hello, amateurs. Welcome back to our Lions series. And I've got Elko with me again today for his Lions debut. Congratulations, Elko. How does it feel?
Thanks, TT. Oh, what an honor! What an honor! Delighted to be here and give my no Irish slant at all today.
Absolutely. In this episode, we are going to be looking at the Reds match, the Queensland Reds against the British and Irish Lions, which was played earlier today at the Suncorp Stadium. And of course, the big news pre-game was Hugo Keenan out, being ill and being replaced by Elliot Daly. What did you make of that, mate?
There's some great memes going on socials of sort of this was Hugo last night and guys on the lash sort of thing. Yeah, it was. I think it's really disappointing for Hugo because he's one of the few that hasn't got a chance to put his marker down and. We'll get on to Elliot Daly, I'm sure, but the way Elliot's been playing in the games before, it's a bit of a miss for Hugo, but we are. I'm sure he'll get an opportunity very soon. Hopefully, he's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, it's a very short illness and he'll be back. But just in terms of the broader Lions fullback situation, it's just one fewer game for either Keenan or Kinghorn to really sort of put their marker down between them. So it's getting really tight there in the fullback position.
It is getting tight, but I will get onto this, and it's sort of a bugbear of how we're playing at the moment. But I don't know, someone like Kinghorn, the way we're playing at the moment, I feel it's quite. And I think if you're a good player, you can fit in. And the way they're playing is letting the boys play. Now, I'm not sure that's the way to go against Australia. And we'll get into it, but I think we'll be okay, particularly the way Kinghorn has been playing, in France. By the way, but we'll be a stronger side if they're all fit and good to go. And it is a miss that he didn't get any game time today. It's a bit annoying, especially you saw how well Gibson Park went today, having had a long layoff. I thought he was superb.
Yeah, completely. So let's get into the game. It was, to be honest, the Lions. I thought they showed some reasonable shape early doors. There was a lot of decent movement, but man, the error count was absolutely crucifying for them. There was one by Elliot Daly when he tried to sort of throw the ball back inside to Tom
Yeah.
Curry, and it looked like it kind of hit his own shoulder. Tom Curry himself made a few errors, handling errors, and missed tackles as well. So it was very stop-start for the Lions at the start, and the Reds took full advantage.
Yeah, it was frustrating. Yeah, that Elite AU one is sort of like I do now when I'm playing touch, trying to it goes off my belly and then off. It was a weird one, and I think whoever was come and Curry, you're right, Curry come back in would have scored coming inside. It's a weird one, TT. I feel I know what Farrell wants to do. Farrell does not want to be Gatland, and he wants the guys to play some rugby, and I get it completely. But I get this feeling that it's almost like we're watching a British and Irish Barbarians team. They're trying to play all of the time. It's like they're playing with an advantage all of the time that will come back for penalty. And I mean, when Russell's in that mood, I mean, some of the passes he was fizzing out today were incredible. And we're getting on the outside edge and we're playing some great stuff. But really, because what's happening is we're then turning the ball over and we're having to then defend from a transition and we're trying to learn a new defensive pattern. That's really hard for the guys. And if you saw, and this has happened every single game, um, the teams we're playing against are very good in the first 15, 20, 30 minutes because they're playing the lines. It's their biggest game of their careers ever. And it's not for our guys. And they're winning the contact area, which is really worrying. It's certainly in the first half. Some of the collisions we just weren't able to win defensively. And I think it's because we're just not learning. We're not doing enough reps from say a set piece, whatever. We're turning the ball over, and it's hard transition. Anyway, I'm torn because I feel you can learn the razzmatazz later, but we have to learn how to play together as a team, in my opinion. And I just think like Bundyaki has started two games, right? And the amount of times that Bundy is a crash ball, he's unbelievable. He's not a ball playing 12, but he's really good at what he does. And he'll get you gain line and we'll get in behind and we'll score. The amount of times off a line out, he runs up as a 12 and they never give him the ball once. Not once. So we're not fooling anybody. There's no foil because the guys now know to kind of step off. Same with our lineouts. We're doing all this movement. Whereas I feel the first three games we should be just doing fast ball to two, fast ball, just win the ball, do stuff, and then we can do the movement later because they'll think, oh yeah, we throw to there or whatever sort of thing. So for me, it's a little bit frustrating. Although some of the stuff is outrageous, like watching Russell, it's so much fun. I'm like, this is great, but is that the way to beat Australia in a three-test series? I don't know. I think it's going to be quite tight, and I thought we would play like Ireland and we would play like Leinster and try and overpower teams with what we selected. And I don't. I'd rather we do play some really good stuff, but I just think for the first 4 or 5 games, I'm really surprised with how Faz has gone about letting the lads chuck it around like it's crazy times. I mean, it's fun to watch, and we're winning by big
Yeah.
scores, but we're winning against club sides who, frankly, are way off what Australia are going to be. Way off.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing in terms of the coaching philosophy there, because clearly it seems that Farrell's really wants to get the patterns of play and the people playing with the ball together and generating excitement and stuff like that. Two different trains of thought, and I can see the positives of each. But whilst we jump on that defensive point that you made there, and the fact that the Lions were a little bit soft early doors, that was so evident in the first Reds try. Somebody went clean through the middle. Will Stewart was on the outside. I didn't catch who was on the inside that missed the tackle. But then there was another carry after that by the number 8, and he went through Chesham and Tom Curry in a double tackle. He knocked them both over. That is almost unheard of, to be fair. But fair play to the guy. And then they scored soon afterwards. But that was symptomatic of what we've seen defensively sometimes from the Lions.
100%. And it's like, if you notice today, and I think it's because of who he's selecting, and again, it's hard because there's a lot of very similar players that are playing at the same time, and particularly today, if you watch the game again in the first half, when we're in, and again, it's when we're under pressure in transition and we're trying to scramble D, Curry and Morgan were like in the same spot and they're trying to tackle the same thing, and they're missing and they're getting their timing wrong, and it's all over the show sort of thing. It's hard. It's and like Chesham's another one. He's such a workhorse. Like he's much more than a traditional 4 or 5. He's almost a 6.5. He's unbelievable. But he was getting in the same, and that's just reps because they're not used to playing all together at the same time. So yeah, it's a little bit worrying. When we get it right, we look good. You know, obviously because the players we have are incredible. But it's a bit of a worry that we're just not getting enough time, I think.
Yeah, when the game breaks up, absolutely, you see the quality of these Lions players, particularly the three quarters, in just choosing the correct pass, choosing the correct running lines, and just picking people off. Particularly in the last game, actually, I'd say against the Force. However, let's talk about a real positive for the Lions. I think I picked it out in my pre-game. I wanted Maro Toji to go out there and be
Yeah,
the Maro that we all know he can be, to lead this tour from the front, and I thought he absolutely did that today.
yeah, he was quality, and he had to, right, because there's been some big performances with particularly with McCarthy and stuff like that. And yeah, I thought he was particularly in line out. I thought he was savage. He was jumping with a one-man lift and winning ball, just really messing things up. They went after him as well physically. I thought tried to mess him up a little bit and sort of physically go after him. But yeah, I thought he was excellent. I thought he led really well. Um, and yeah, looked particularly good. It's a tough one. I don't know if you've heard this, TT. There's a sort of view from the Irish press that the Wednesday team is the test team. That's what they feel. That Farrell has purposely mixed it so that they'll have extra recovery time. I don't know if you've heard that or what your thoughts are.
I did. I did hear that. Yeah, I heard that as a potential theory, and there's some sense in that as well. Of course, yeah. I think they're just going to mix and match as we go through, and eventually, I don't know. For me, I think Farrell's keeping his. He says it all the time, but I believe him. I think he's really keeping his opinions open. I think he's trying to stay as broad as he can until decisions absolutely have to be made. I
Mm.
believe that. So yeah, maybe he's heading towards a test team on a Wednesday, but that could easily change. I still think they're a long way off knowing exactly what the test team's going to be.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I wouldn't have a clue. I mean, there's a couple of people you'd probably want to have in, like Pollock. I mean, he's been just outrageously good to keep stepping up to the plate. But where? Not number 8, I don't think. Conan, I thought on a positive side, a lot of the guys came through that we haven't had full games. Conan was good today. I thought physical. He hasn't had a start in a while. I thought he was excellent, and every time he went into contact, I was thinking, God, don't be injured, because I don't think we can afford to lose him at all.
I agree. I thought Conan was superb, both in physicality, on attack, and defence. But I want to highlight his handling. Some of his handling today was unbelievable. It was him who put Duan van der Merwe in the corner for his try. And also, towards the end of the game, there was a line out which was thrown over the top by the Lions, and it died on him, basically. But he was running full pelt, and he caught it sort of below knee height, and then put Bundy through a hole as well, just off that. It was phenomenal hands by him, and I thought he had a really top game as well.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think he's obviously an unbelievable specimen, and he is a physical carrier because he can do both. But I think underestimate him at your peril, because he can put people away in 2v1. But this is what I kind of saying earlier. Like his when he puts his game on the game, and it is physical and it goes, then people kind of like, oh, and then he's got a tiny little bit more time to do the deft hands when it's on. Sometimes today I felt we were like, there was a time when Van der Merwe got the ball, and you're like, go, run, and he was up against a prop, and he's going, and then he's looking for the pass. I'm like, just go, just run first, and then do the hands after. But anyway, Conan I thought he's a very skillful player, a really, really good player.
Yeah, that's an interesting one with Van der Merwe, because what you've just described is the player he was 2, maybe 3 years ago. That was all he could do. Like, he had no real linking, handling ability at all. And I think they've been working with him a lot on that in training, because you have seen it come up and you've seen it work and be very effective. But then there's the decision making around it, isn't there?
Yeah.
When is the time to just put your head down and go? When is the time to look for the pass? And I think because it's all still relatively recent for him, I think that's where he fails or doesn't quite get it right sometimes.
Yeah, I think I can't remember. One of the pundits was talking about this, sort of saying that you can see that the players are thinking a lot, which I think is dangerous. They should be on instinct, but it's understandable. It's all new. They're trying to remember the calls, trying to do that. He's probably trying to remember. That was set up for him to go and score like he did against England in Twickenham that time, where he just stepped. The gap was there. It's like when whoever taught Jason Robinson how to kick. It's like whoever don't kick, just go. But obviously at test level, you have to have that in your game. But yeah, when they start, and it's going to come. I'm being sort of overly critical because I just want them to do so well. When it is all instinctual, they are going to be unbelievable. They are going to be very, very good, because there's some serious players.
Yeah, like I said, when it gets broken, that's when we've seen them at their best so far, I think. Where they haven't been at their best is from kickoff receipts last week, and then this week, one in the backfield, which bounced all the way through to the in-goal area. And I tell you what, that was a gnat's whisker away from being a try. And just talking about law around that, he grounded it, I think, with somewhere sort of down near his hip. And if that ball had still been in field, it would have been a try, because
Yeah,
anywhere along your front is good enough to ground for a try. It doesn't have to be hands or arms, anywhere along the front. And I heard somebody else say as well that it couldn't have been a try because his foot was in touch or his arm was in touch. That's irrelevant as well, because he wasn't in possession of the ball. He was just grounding it. So you can actually be off the pitch. And if you run in and ground the ball inside the in-goal area, then it would have been a try. So it was very, very close to being a try
yeah,
there.
big time. I just wonder, did someone have a word with Les Kiss, their coach? Because you could, like, from Saturday, you can imagine it would have been brought up, right? They probably did quite a bit of training, or just talking about it. Who's what? The guys in today were probably thinking, right, we'll get this right, and we'll really show them. And then every ball they kicked was long. I was like, that's so funny, because they didn't get to really rectify that problem. In fact, we've now kind of seen another issue. Obviously, kickoffs being the main theme, sort of thing. But yeah, I thought it was funny.
Yeah, it made me laugh, actually. I noticed the same thing, their tactics. Okay, next thing I'd like to talk about is the Itoji try. And it's not about Itoji's part in it. It's actually going to tie in something that you said earlier about Bundy Aki, because he took that lead ball up. And I rarely see him carry in that position, but he did on this occasion. And it was the right choice. He read what the defenders are doing in front of him and stepped back inside and made a really good carry, sort of 5, 6, 7, 8 meters, and that was what led to Itoje eventually scoring.
Yeah, I mean he's so dangerous and physically. Very rarely does he not get gain line when he's given the ball. And yeah, it was a good decision. Got the gain line, and then things are a little bit easier, right? You know, you can see that the way they're training and the way they want to play is there's lots of 1-2s and someone trying to get a second ball, whether that's spinning on wraparounds or it's the scrum half, whoever that is, trying to get another ball and then quick hands. So they're trying to do that, but they've got to earn that right with big physicality up front. And someone like Bundy is the type of player that can do that for you, get that gain line, and then things start to open up. Then once you're in behind, killer.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing about that try, which I found amusing, I'll say, is the gap that Gibson Park eventually went through. When he saw the gap, it was enormous. It was
Yeah,
about 25 meters, I think. But by the time the ball had come out of the rocket, it closed right down. But it was still big enough for him to get through, get his hands free, and get it back to Itoje on the inside.
yeah, he's excellent at that, isn't he? His sort of all court game has come on leaps and bounds. And again, I think Rog and Dan Bigger it was so excellent watching them today. Apart from Dan not being able to get a word in edgeways, I don't know if you saw that after. It was quite funny. But like the some of the sort of stuff there coming up was brilliant. But Rog was saying, the improvement that Gibson Park has made in his game, his kicking game, but also interesting defenders and making room for other people, but then being absolutely killer when he sees the gap and recognizing that to go for it. Massive positive him coming through unscathed today, big time.
Yeah, talking about players coming up through unscathed. Unfortunately, that is not the case for Elliot Daly, who he did have a few errors in him today, but he also did some really fantastic things. His catch and pass for Tommy Freeman's first try was excellent, and he was generally quite classy again today, I thought. I thought he was actually in trouble earlier. When Jack Morgan went over, he got whacked on that initial phase of play off the ball, and I thought he'd like popped a rib or something like that, but evidently that was just winding, but he did properly hurt himself later. Wrist, forearm, it's uncertain at the moment, but he's going off for an x-ray to find out for sure.
Yeah, it's he has. I think he's probably been, if not the best tourist so far, up there in the top three in terms of his performance. He's reliable. We haven't even seen him go for a long kick yet or anything like that, but he's excellent. He's been very steady. He's calmed things down, and he's attacked really well. If we lose him, it's a bit scary because of the cover he can give us. I don't know. I thought uh, broken arm because of the. Then I thought maybe he ruptured his bicep tendon, but then I saw him. I couldn't work out. He was obviously very disappointed. They kept showing him he was shaking his head. I think it was a break. I think he'd almost have to hold his arm. I don't know. I'm let's pray for him. It's a bit like David Beckham in the World Cup that time. Just make sure he's okay. But what it will be a real kick because obviously he's in there because Hugo pulled out last minute. Then he has to double up and go again. And what it's just so damn unlucky that could happen. So fingers crossed. I don't know. We'll probably hear tomorrow, I guess. If it's a break, then we'll definitely know tomorrow.
Yeah, 100%. Hopefully it's just a bang and no more, and he'll recover in 3 or 4 days or something. Some other interesting points I thought from the game. Ben Earl came on at centre. So interesting that the Lions are using him in that role as well. Does that potentially lead to him being maybe a favourite for a bench spot when we get to the tests?
Yeah. Did he come on before or after Ringrose? Does Ring?
Before, I think before he
Yeah.
came on for Bundy.
Well, okay, interesting. So, okay, yeah. Well, I mean, Eddie Jones always spoke about it. I think saying, one guy that can do it, he's got the pace and everything else. Interesting. It almost gives Faz more headaches, to be honest, though. With all these guys being able to play out of position, Pollock at 8-7, wherever. Um, but I suppose you'd rather have that ability, particularly if you're looking at an unusual split on the bench. Maybe that could be where it comes into play.
Absolutely. One of the other things you mentioned, Dan Bigger and Ronan O'Gara there. I was listening to comms, and Dan Bigger did this big old speech about what you should do when you come on as a sub, and what you're really looking for is zero errors or minimal errors. You want to come on, do your job, and just be really efficient. And I just could not help but think that he sat next to Rona Nagara, who came on off the bench in the second test in South Africa in 2009,
Oh my
ran all
God.
over the place like a maniac, and gave a penalty away that
That's
ended up losing the
that's
series.
that's right. Didn't he? What did he do? Did he kick it and then chase or something happened? Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
and he
he
tackled the guy in the
guy
air.
in the air,
Yeah.
and then they, yeah. Oh my God, I didn't even twig that. Yeah, yeah. But Roger's brain is probably working. He's probably doing. He's so intense, isn't he? An unusual mix, those two, because they disagreed on quite a lot, but it kind of got through it, sort of thing. A few times, Roger's like, "No, no." Like, okay, fair enough. You're not going to disagree with him, sort of thing.
Yeah, but I think that's a really interesting point, because they're obviously two brilliant rugby minds. And it just goes to show there's so many different ways of playing the game. There's so many different approaches that you can take that could be successful. And it just depends the way you see it, the way you see our strengths and their weaknesses, or vice versa. And people can rightly choose different options and still get to the same point in the end.
100%. That's like me saying what I've said at the beginning about how the only people that know is the people in the room. Like Faz, like, you can't doubt the guy. They must know, and I think he probably does have a test team in mind, and of how they're going to play, or they may have something where they're going to pick different teams for different tests. It might be all played out. But you're right. There's so many different ways to skin a cat here, right? And it's interesting that Dan has only just finished the game, and then Roger's in his coaching career, so there's kind of two kind of things going on there. And but it's I thought interesting that they were talking about the documentary about the referees, and
Uh,
um, yeah, and Roger hadn't seen it, which I thought was really weird. That I would have thought he definitely. So he's going to watch it tonight apparently and come back to us.
I look forward to hearing. Okay,
Well,
another player that I want to pick up.
the amount of times he's been sent off the sidelines in France, I just think it's hilarious.
Another player I want to pick out for the Lions is Finn Russell. I thought he just very quietly, like compared to how he used to be as a player, he's very sort of reserved now, and he just executes everything well, like the passing, the kicking, the decision making. Most importantly, he just seems to be really calm, really in control, and just gets his team moving.
Yeah, I think he's matured a lot, hasn't he? And he's relishing this by the looks of it. I don't think I. It depends what they want to do. I'm not convinced he's nailed down yet, but he's close. Only because Finn Smith just keeps playing really well, every time, and because of the way I want to see them play a little bit more structured, then it's probably Finn. It's probably Finn Smith. The way you go, but what's really impressed me with Finn, never mind the fizzing passes and how good he is at that, but defensively he's been unbelievable. He keeps, and I don't know whether that's a good thing or not, because we've just spoken about some of the injuries we're seeing, and the more he's getting, and it was the same with Gibson Park today. He did put in a lot of big tackles as well, and had to. But yeah, Russell's making he's not like afraid to get in there, and he's making some dominant tackles as well, which I think is that's been coming more and more into his game. But I think if you're if you're in that squad and you had any doubts, then as him as being a bit of a maverick and sort of stuff, as as a teammate, that stuff's going now. Like he's proving himself to be a brilliant line, and more power to him.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's obvious from all the behind the scenes footage that he's very well liked. But I love there was a moment just after the final whistle when he was basically, it looked like he was wrestling Henry Pollock to the ground for something or other. They were both giggling about it. But, it's a nice thing when, all these guys are really getting on and sort of becoming a really sort of strong, bound squad.
Yeah, yeah, and by all accounts, they're getting a few nights on the beers as well, and that's something that Faz really, because he's talking about that tonight. Even though they're having to travel, I think tomorrow, or maybe it's the next day. But they're still getting to enjoy it and have a few beers, because that's, we both know that's massive. Uh, Even though the game has moved on, and I'm sure they're not like doing what the lads were doing in the '97 lines, but they're gonna have a few beers and enjoy each other's company.
Yeah, times change, don't they? I mean, I'm sure for those guys, actually, just a few beers is probably just fantastic. They'll get as
Perfect.
much enjoyment out of that, relative to what they used to. That it's probably the right thing. Just a quick word from me, though, for one of the Queensland Reds, Hunter Paisami. So many involvements today, both sides of the ball, like great carries, great tackling. He stole it, nicked a few turnovers as well. He had an amazing game, I thought. And, he's kind of a little bit on the periphery of that Wallabies squad, but that's got to given him a great chance of sort of busting into the test team, particularly if there happens to be an injury or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, he must have played himself close to come into the reckoning. Has he been involved in the squad at all, or not really?
He is in the squad. He
Oh,
is
he
in
is
the
in the
squad.
squad,
Yeah.
but he got okay. He
Yeah.
got released, or maybe they felt he needed some game time. And
Yeah.
yeah, superb caused a lot of problems because he didn't release. uh, Is that the because they named out quite a big list of guys that weren't there, right? For whatever reason,
Yeah.
not being
Six.
released.
Six of them. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, geez, wow. Okay, so yeah, maybe they felt he needed game time, and he's put his hand up, hasn't he? Big time.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, while we're talking about putting their hands up, who do you think today like needed a big game for the Lions in terms of their potential test selection? Who do you think did that today for the Lions?
Well, I think everybody needed to play, and that's where we're at now with this team. It's not too. There's not levels of. They're all class. So I think they all need to. I was really impressed with Kelleher. I think he's very quietly getting on with the basics, and is has seemed to have got much more effective in his ball running. Scrum. We haven't spoken about scrums yet, TT. That's obviously a worry, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in a second. I thought Freeman um, has proven again that he is one of the best finishers in the world. Like he just can finish tries. I thought he was really, really good. So I like them, and obviously the two, 9 and 10, I thought were class. Were a class act today. But yeah, I don't know what you thought of the scrums. It's a little bit of a worry.
Definitely. I thought they were messy from the start, and it's very hard to tell when you're watching on the telly. But the referee absolutely took a dislike to something the Lions were doing very early on in that game, and his opinion didn't really change even when the subs came on. So England did a brilliant job over the last 12 months. What we saw today was very much what the England scrum used to look like on the wrong side of referees constantly, but they fixed that over the last 12 months. So there's some intel. Some of those guys in that squad know what they need to do. Genge and Stewart, they were primary in sorting that out for England. They need to get together and sort that out so they are being whiter than white for these referees because the scrum is still massive in this game. And I think the Lions could have an advantage in there against the Wallabies if they get it right.
Yeah, I mean, well, 12 months ago, when everyone was saying Australia are going to get like mugged off 3-0 and they didn't have a chance, we were talking about how the lines forwards would just overpower and the set piece would be so good. And that's like, we ain't seen any of that. I know we scrummaged pretty well against Argentina, but we haven't seen anything like that. I thought, I might be wrong. I need to rewatch the game. I felt the referee was very much on the side of the team putting the ball in, and that team seemed to get, particularly the first one when they went for us, sort of thing. And Porter obviously has a bit of a rep, and I don't know whether they're going after that sort of thing. And then, but what was really annoying was the second half was this, like, it was the weight wasn't right. We didn't even get a scrum. It was just like free kick and then went to penalties. That's we can't have that in the either we're going to get that. That means we're a weakness is getting sort of looked at by the Aussies, or we're losing a strength because we have to be more patient and get that done. But you're right. I mean, there's some serious IP, scrummaging IP there within that squad, and as well as the coaches. I mean, Fogarty has done very well over the years. So it's just another thing, and this is what I mean about looking at like what are we prioritizing within the training? Are we prioritizing this awesome play in the back line? And for me as an old school guy, I'd be like, well, let's get our line out right, let's get our scrums right, let's get our D right, and then after that we'll put it all together. But it feels like we're doing it I presume Farrell has faith that it will all come together at the right time, but we need to get the scrum sorted because I think that's a weapon for us.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it has been good at times this tour so far. Like we mentioned Argentina, but it needs to function across the board through the Test series, and I think it will. I think it will. Once they get there, it's another couple of weeks, another number of training sessions, another number of matches together. I think they'll get there, but it does need to be ticked off for sure. Okay, mate. As we come towards an end here, any other further thoughts or things you want to bring up?
I just had a column of pro. We've gone through most of the stuff. Just a shout for Jack Morgan as the unfortunately the only Welsh boy there. I thought he was superb today. You asked who needs to have a big game. I thought he had a really big game. I think he got player of the match. He's superb. Clearly, extremely well liked within the squad as well. And I thought he'd a good game. I suppose he can play eight as well, which is whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know. But he might have to. But yeah, just a shout out for him as the lone Welshman.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we will bring this to a close. Excellent stuff. The Lions are sort of romping home at the moment in these games. Eventually, they've all been sticky starts, but they've got there on Australian soil. What do you think? People at home, let us know your comments down below. Let us know what you think about the scrums. What do you think about Alco's thoughts around, training priorities? And, do you think Farrell's going about it the right way? Let us know in the comments down below, and we'll join you there for a friendly conversation. Give the video a thumbs up while you're down there, if you don't mind. It helps other people find it. It just leaves me to say, Elko, thank you so much for your time again today. Much appreciated.
Thanks, ET. See you soon.
Absolutely. And people at home, you can subscribe there. You can watch that one next. Don't forget to get out and play.